Hello everyone, welcome to Sentiments and Scribbles, where I am scribbling and I am sentimental. That was never the catchphrase. Will it be the catchphrase now? Who knows? I am here to show you the various drawings that I made for Artfight this year. Artfight, as well as the past couple months, have been kind of crazy. The past couple months part I'll go over in another video because that's more of a me thing and not related to this video, but the Artfight part itself is interesting. The more minor stuff is the teams this year, vampires and werewolves, were kind of unbalanced, to say the least. There's more of a certain fan base within Artfight that would be more biased towards werewolves, and so there were a lot more werewolf members and thus a lot more werewolf attacks and a lot more werewolf revenges and stuff like that. So obviously this year werewolves won. Some people I know, were felt a bit defeated by the whole thing, and that's understandable. The more major thing is that one of the Artfight staff chose to step down, and following that, a lot of the Artfight staff resigned. This is particularly interesting to me because a lot, if not all, of the Artfight staff are volunteers from what I know. I'll have a link down in the description to someone basically describing the situation because I am by no means the expert on this whole situation, but yeah, it's caused a lot of people to feel like they can't really go on Artfight anymore because they don't feel like it's morally correct, and that's their choice and I don't blame them for it or anything like that. This year I got to do a lot of things with wings and feathers. Last year I did more humanoid designs, and that was, the majority of what I did. There were a few Kirby OCs and Cookie Run OCs and things like that, but I didn't really step into animal OCs or anything like that I can recall. So this year I did a lot more of that, and I got to learn a fair bit from that. Ironically, for being on the red team, I chose a lot of the cool colored characters, and that's more of a preference of mine, but I did get to work on some other color palettes as well. I also got to try new lining and shading techniques. The technique for lining that I started out with when I was getting right into Artfight was making a sort of border with a thicker line weight and then filling in the rest of the details with a thinner line weight. This allowed for more details within the lines, which I kind of sometimes have a problem with when I'm trying to vary the line weight between thick and thin, because the thick line weights, which are usually representing shadows, can cover some of the details up. Later on, with some of the attacks, depending on the style I wanted to do, I went back to varied line weight, but it was an interesting experiment to try. Now, with shading, the thing I usually do is, instead of coloring a little bit at a time, I kind of do the opposite. I fill clipping mask layers with the color I'm using to shade and the color I'm using to highlight, and then I erase from those the respective places where I want shadows and places where I want light. So on the darker layer, I would erase where I want light to be, or where I want shadow not to be, if you prefer, and on the lighter layer, I would erase where I want shadows to be, or where I want the light layer not to be. And, it's an interesting experiment and made for easier blurring in some areas. But I tried to step up from that with some of the later drawings where instead of filling the whole clipping mask layer with color, I would fill the upper half and lower half with the lighter color and the darker color respectively. That way, when I was erasing to form shadows or form light, there was a bit more of an idea of stronger shadows or stronger light in areas than in others. And I liked that technique. I think I might be using it more in the future. If by chance you are new here and don't know what Artfight is, which, Artfight is probably in the title of this vid, editor, me, will probably make sure that's the case or point that out that that's not the case. Either I'll look super smart or super not. But anyways, if you don't know what Artfight is, it's a yearly event that lasts for an entire month where there are 2 teams and both teams have a theme that corresponds to each other. Last year was Wither and Bloom. This year is Vampires and Werewolves. Usually the themes are, correlated in some way. There was also steampunk and cyberpunk in a year that I was not there for, and other themes as well. Dreams and nightmares comes to mind. How Artfight works is you choose someone else's character and draw that person's character, and that is called an attack. You get a certain amount of points for the team that you have chosen based on the attack, and it can be based on things like the quality of the shading, the quality of the line work, things like that. Whether you have a background or not, the quality of the background, and that's just the drawing aspect. You can have renders, 3D renders of the characters as well. You can have animations. It's a whole real complicated mess. An interesting aspect of it as well is revenges, where in response to having their character drawn, the artist who had their character drawn can decide to draw one of your characters as well. This doesn't always happen. It didn't happen to me too much this year. All of the times there's just more people drawing each other's characters, and that's, a single attack. There's no revenge chains or anything like that. To clarify, a revenge chain is when that process of revenge starts, and that chain can go on for a while. You can go back and forth, character after character, with each other. And it can be a pretty fun experience. I had that happen in a previous year with a friend of mine who had some really cool character designs, and yeah, it's fun. Make no mistake either, they can get to insane amounts. Think 100s. But on the years where you don't get revenges, or, you don't get attacks on your characters and things like that, I think at the end of the day, without that element, the goal of Artfight is to challenge yourself as an artist. Doing this challenge for me also means trying to experiment with poses and stuff like that, and let me tell you, for some of these, Magic Poser, which is both an app and an online program, I guess would be the word for it, Anyways, Magic Poser was a godsend for some of these anyway. Some of these, I sort of more collaged together references online that I could find and went, yep, that's pretty good, I'm going to go ahead and go with that. And I'll be honest with you, custom brushes in Procreate are also, a godsend, whether that be brushes created by other people or brushes I've created for myself. Actually, on that note, I have created an entire sort of sketch brush set that I use for my own work, and that includes pointed brushes that I prefer a specific line weight to use for lining things, and that some of the inking pens available in Procreate don't exactly scratch that itch in the particular way that I want, and some of those are just brushes that I like the feel of sketching with. In the previous program that I used, which I can't remember the name of right now, never mind, just looked it up. It was called Brushes Redux, which in comparison to other art programs I use, especially the one I'm using now, which is Procreate, it's not exactly the best. There's no clipping mask, there's no tutorial to it, so you have to kind of fidget around before you realize, oh, this is how you alpha lock, and this is how you lock the layers, and this is how you mess with the hue and saturation. There's not exactly a tutorial for that. There's a speed paint of sorts that you're given as a way of showing various brushes and things like that, but it doesn't exactly guide you through the way that Procreate does for some of the things, which, I greatly appreciate in an art program, that it says, hey, the various buttons, here's what they do. But man, did Brushes Redux have some great brushes for sketching, at least in my opinion. Maybe it's that I got used to them, and, after coming to Procreate, it's just feeling of missing what I was always using. But it just felt so great to use them. There was... It's a really simple thing too. It's basically an airbrush set at 50% opacity, but it's more than that. The thing with the way that it's different from an airbrush is that where an airbrush sort of acts like kind of, and it's not like a marker where it layers on top of each other. Usually with the airbrush you can paint over a bit and then let go and then paint over again, or sketch over again if you prefer. But with this brush there's an element of layering within the brush already, and that feels great. Of course, the funny thing about me using Procreate now is I don't know if Brushes Redux has really changed since the last time I used it. It's been... In the small chance there happen to be any Brushes Redux users who are loyal to the program and how dare I besmirch the program and things like that, and it does happen to have proved in those regards, I am sorry. But then again, if you are a loyal Brushes Redux user, there is also Metabang and Ibis Paint and a lot other free programs. That's, you know, a draw to Brushes Redux is that it is free, and I just want you to know there are options in case Brushes Redux hasn't improved from what I said. It's by no means a bad program. It's not crashy. It doesn't have too many ads. It doesn't have ads at all, honestly, from what I can recall, unless, you know, they change that too. But there's the slightest possibility that I'm projecting here, considering my airbrush-esque sketch set. There is perhaps, I wouldn't call it irony, because it's not, but maybe juxtaposition would be the word for it. A lot of the brushes in Procreate, and I think other digital drawing programs as well, tend to try to imitate traditional painting and drawing and things like that. And I'm kind of doing the opposite in a way. Of course, perhaps the direct opposite to that would be considered pixel art, considering it's a whole digital medium that is very much not based in traditional imitation. Even the airbrushes, which I use a lot for coloring and sometimes smudging, sue me, are based on airbrushes, which are a thing that exists. Pixel art exists as well, but don't tell the traditional artists that we can shapeshift. Pixel art could also be done in real life, but again, don't tell the traditional artists they don't need more power. I'm saying this as if I don't frequently carry around a sketchbook or haven't made ink drawings for October. Do not tell the traditional artists that I am among their ranks and acting as a spy for the digital artists. I am a bit sleep deprived, and it's not because of artfight, oddly enough. Well, partly, I don't know, maybe. The thing with artfight is I tend to, well, in all of the 2 years I have done it, wow, so much experience, I tend to stay up to make the art that I make because I want it to be very good and I want to make as much of it as possible. But nope, I have been having trouble with sleep for other reasons. Artfight was, in a way, a good distraction from all of those. It can cause a lot of stress for some people, and perfectionism can get to people in terms of art and things like that, but funny enough, part of the reason I made Scribbles and Sentiments in the first place is to let go of perfectionism. And though Artfight might have left me feeling defeated for a while, not just because of the teams and various things like that, but because I put so much of myself into it, it was still a good way to challenge myself, in my opinion. When it comes to the things that I've surfaced about the people running Artfight, I see it as more of a problem of said moderation and not the community itself. So I will likely be returning to Artfight next year. Until then, I'll be scribbling in my sentimental way in other videos, in non-Artfight related manners. I haven't really talked about the character designs that I used for my art this year as much as I did last year, but I want to take a moment to say that I did, as I said, learn a lot from the process. Drawing animals and stepping out of my comfort zone in that regard gave me some insight on how to draw and shade fur and a new way of drawing wings. I have a bad habit of outlining every single feather when it comes to wings, so it was a good experience realizing, oh, I don't have to do that. And for the more humanoid looking ones, it was still really nice to get compliments. And that's a big part of artfight, honestly, just people hyping each other up, like, oh my goodness, you drew my character and it looks so cool. I, by coincidence, found the character of an artist that I've really admired for a while, and it was so sweet hearing from them that they enjoyed my art. A slight note here is that when it comes to the more popular artists, I have noticed a few of them say, hey, don't attack me just because you want revenge in my exact style because you like my art style. Attack me because you enjoy the character, and I definitely agree with that sentiment. Call this idol worship if you want, but I was honored to get the chance to draw a character of an artist that I really admired. Getting a compliment was honestly just a cherry on top in a way. One last note is that if any of the artists whose characters are involved in this video don't want me to have their character in this video, please do contact me and I will take out the part that has your character in it and might do some re-uploading so I can make sure that the audio is still fine and stuff like that. And it is completely fine, no need to worry about it. With that though, I would say that this video is just about done. If you happen to like this video, then feel free to like, share, and subscribe, or as I have said in a few descriptions before, lick, shape, and submarine. Until next time, I am Owl-Moniker and consider this your reminder to do the things you love without holding yourself to the standards of perfection.